President Joe Biden is the weakest executive to ever hold office in the history of the United States of America, and that is fantastic news. The mainstream media and those in charge of social media have now been forced openly to admit it. And by default, admitting that they aren't nearly as powerful as they thought they were. Once again, this is great news. The article on the left. Protecting Biden from further embarrassment. YouTube to hide dislikes on videos as users ruthlessly downvote the president. I'll give you the link to the article and you can read it, where they talk about the ratio of dislikes to likes on YouTube for virtually every single video put out by the White House. This is the point. You are not as powerless as you think you are. Many have thought, oh, YouTube has done this, and Instagram has done that, and Twitter does this. You are not powerless. You have the ability to make change. This is a huge change. And on the right, the reason I brought up that image, people have asked me, why do you think they're calling it the Biden-Harris way or the Biden-Harris administration? It's very simple. When everything falls apart completely, and they've got to start pointing fingers, it's easier to point fingers at two than it is to one. They don't want to hang this all on him. So there'll be some other scapegoat for this or scapegoat for that. Why do you think he decided to chicken out and hand off the border to her? Because he knows it's a loser. This is slam dunk, guys. And like I said, it is great news if you are a states' rights person. And let me ask you guys a question. There's been this myth out there about states' rights not being a thing or states' rights not being important. If being a state wasn't so important, why is Washington, D.C. trying to be one? Why is Puerto Rico trying to be one? States' rights matters. Our governor in Florida is proving it. I've documented it so many different ways, it's almost getting redundant at this point. Today, earlier, I had a live where he announced that of the money coming back to Florida, and I do mean back to Florida, it's our money. Washington, D.C. has no money of its own. Instead of creating these state-run social programs where there's a whole bunch of hoops you have to jump through, the governor is just writing checks. Every law enforcement officer, every firefighter, every EMT, every paramedic, every teacher, and every principal in a school, they're all just going to get checks for $1,000. That's fact. State of Florida. See, the government in Florida is not trying to tell people what they need to do or how they need to do it with their money. Here's the money. Do what you want to do. Fix it your way. That's the key. That's the key. Now, in contrast, let's look at Lester Holt and Joe Scarborough. Joe Scarborough is kind of funny since he lives in Jupiter, Florida. Yes, that's right. Mr. Support Vaccine Passports or Go Back to Your Caves lives in Jupiter, Florida, where there will be no mandates. Our governor is taking executive action to ensure that. This is the funny part. Now, the issue with Lester Holt saying that we don't need to hear both sides to define truth, fairness is overrated, everybody reacts to that in a very visceral, emotional way. When you think about it objectively, though, the example that he uses is that the sun sets in the west. We don't need to hear any contrary view to establish that to be fact. Okay, let's say the sun does set in the west. That's fine. What about the whole issue with gender? You see, there'll be people like, you can't censor where all of our opinions are valid. You see, there's a difference between opinion and fact. A down vote is an opinion. Stating that the sun sets in the north, or that the earth is flat, or something ridiculous, is not valid, because there's no basis for it. But what about the gender issue? You see, there are people who would say that since that's ridiculous, 51 genders, 57 genders, whatever they're up to now, we shouldn't teach that to kids. But then the other side says, wait a minute, all opinions are valid. So you have two groups of people arguing on both sides of the argument, just on different topics. This is how you know you're being played. This is how you know you're being manipulated. They're trying to distract. They're trying to use carrot and stick. They're trying to do all sorts of different things to try to make people believe something that isn't true. They've even gone as far as to say, the reason Biden is popular, we did a video on this. Popular is not right. Not always, not exclusively. For people like you and I, but for over on the left, that's all they have. And this is the trap of social media. This is the most important part of the video right here. Simply liking or disliking something. Upvoting it or downvoting it. Retweeting it or not. However many views. None of that is a measure of something that is true or right or good. None of it. When I did the Antarctica videos, I used Google Earth Pro so that nobody had to trust me. Google Earth Pro is open source software. It's free. You can download it to your computer. I gave you the coordinates. You can find for yourself. I have no ability to affect the content of that software. So that you can decide for yourself. And you can look at it for yourself. But YouTube is at the point now where they are attempting to hide opinion. Meaning like or dislike. It was the basis of social media. See how many people can like what you say. See how many people agree with this, that, or the other. How many emotional reactions can you get to this status or this picture of a cat or this food you're eating at a restaurant or something else? It was all designed around emotional reaction. And now, when the emotional reaction doesn't agree with the narrative they're trying to create, they have to hide it. And this is their tacit admission of failure. It is the best news ever. I know a lot of people are thinking, wow, this is terrible. It's great news. This is them openly admitting their failure and that they don't control real life. They don't control me. They don't control you. They don't control how we feel. This is an amazing time to be alive. Never in my life have I seen the states become so powerful. And it is such a good thing. It truly is a great thing. For those of you wondering, by the way, Joe Scarborough, MSNBC, Joe and his wife, Mika Brzezinski, they live right here. Jupiter. Now, to be clear, I'm going to have to check on this. Jupiter or Jupiter Island, one of the two, somewhere in this region they live. I know they travel up New York, whatever, DC. But they live here. So it's incredibly disingenuous for him to be ranting like he is. But I know why he's ranting like he is. Because liberal ideology has failed miserably in Florida. And they are powerless to do anything about it. Our governor and our state legislature and Senate and the Supreme Court and local officials have thrashed them soundly In today's press conference, not a single reporter made any type of an attempt to do any kind of a takedown or gotcha question on the governor. Not one. They've given up. So I'll bet they're depressed. I'll bet Mika and Joe, I'll bet you they're just absolutely ready for some counseling. Because their ideology has failed right in their backyard. See, nobody wants to answer that question. Nobody has even decided to talk about it. Florida. How did this happen? How did Florida go from being a swing state to being soundly and completely controlled by conservatives and conservative values? How did this happen? They didn't see it coming. They didn't see it coming. Remember something, that when the governor took office, he did so when Brenda Snipes was still in charge down in, I think it was Palm Beach or Broward, one of the two, with her gone, and the election supervisor from West Palm as well. It's over. It is absolutely over. That's why Florida has good governance. It's not about one person. It's about a group of people. It's about an idea. It's about an attitude. It's an amazing time to be alive. There is a lot to be thankful for. There is a lot to feel blessed by. But this contrast between state houses around this country and Washington, D.C. is the greatest thing that's happened in my lifetime in politics. People are no longer looking to D.C. for leadership, and to me, that is wonderful news. No matter who is there, no one should care. Some months back, I created t-shirts that said devoted across the top, and it said parentheses R 0%, parentheses D 0%. To these election night results, oh, that there could be a day when nobody really gave a you-know-what about who was president. And the only thing they cared about was their governor. And the only thing they really cared about was who their mayor was, or who their local sheriff was, or the makeup of their local town council. And that's all they really cared about. Everything else was irrelevant. And places like Twitter and Instagram and Facebook were all relics of a bygone era where people cared about emotional opinion about this, that, or the other, and people got back to living in real life. That'll be a great day. God bless. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.